recorded. I wanted to show you something. I wanted to show you something. You have seen a lot of signs. You have seen a lot of these yourself, but you may not understand what you are watching, okay? You may not understand what you are seeing when you see this. Let's look at it. That you don't show love. Oh yes, son, I'm talking to you. Wanna get 54 years old. She is 54 years old, okay? No money, oh no, I don't want no. Not a wrinkle in sight. Whew, you guys have no idea. Not a wrinkle in sight. When I realized that parthenogenesis was possible, yeah, I started to also, on the heel of that came the realization of a lot of things that we're witnessing, right? That we witness every day that should not be happening. On the heel of that came the realizations that all the things, literally all of them, that we're witnessing every day should not even be happening. I suspected that whatever it is that blocked our parthenogenesis, that once that it is restored, that this will be an adult woman. That once you reach an adult, once you reach adulthood, you would not be aging. I suspected this. What made me suspect it? Because of the mere fact that men live less than us. Less years. Their lifespan is shorter than ours. But they are stuck with one X. They are stuck with one X, but we are supposed to have two X's. But something is interrupting that X's communication with the second X. And here's the other thing, right? In my research, I discovered that the X has a system to correct errors, which means that it does a lot of genetic stuff, right? Remember, I spoke about how, you can lose 400 cells by just holding a paper in between your fingers, which means that you have to have so many, like the amount of cells that you have to be like by orders of magnitude 1,000,000,000 times bigger than 400,000, more than a billion times more, at least, right? So if you multiply 1,000,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times 400,000, yeah, you are still not going to come across. You are still not going to reach just how many cells we have in our body. That is what your body, your biology is commanding every day. That is what it is replacing every 90 days. That level. You understand that the accuracy it would need to do that successfully, not only one day, not only 1 minute, but every single day for decades and decades and decades. That is something that has to be on a genius level perfection. On a genius level perfectionism, right? Which means that all these diseases, all these wrinkles, right? Which means that, okay, the reason, right? The reason it has a system to heal itself is because of the aiming for that perfection, right? Because it understands that yes, it can do all these things, right? And it can be perfect, but things still go wrong. And if you look at the error rate is like very, very little. But it still has a system to correct said errors because it is aiming for perfection, because it has the capacity to aim for perfection. So if the X, if you have two X's and only if you have two X's and each X has a way to correct errors, which is what they saw in the males, right? And an X, one X, has the ability to correct errors. What do you think happens when you have two functional X's? If the other X is not tied down, is not caged, they would each have this ability and they will likely communicate with each other, which means that they will likely be able to what? Heal anything that will cause aging, diseases, deformities, and all those kinds of things. And even like shorten lifespan. Death, yes, they would likely be able to cure things like death. This is why I say if they're not going to kill us directly, they're going to kill us indirectly. They have been killing us indirectly. Because look at this woman. The reason that you're able to see this now is that because their system is not perfect, and the reason their system is not perfect, the male system, whatever it is that they did to us, the reason it's not perfect is because they had to do a hatch job just to get the job done. They had to do enough just to get the job done because we are a very complicated. One, we are very complicated, but actually the one is that every time you do a hatch job, every time you have to, you have to change something that's already been made, right? You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming just for just enough to get the job done. Plus, we are a very complicated organism. We are much, much more complex than they are, right? We have 3.5 billion base pairs, like hundreds more genes than they have. And this is after they've evolved to make themselves more genes, right? We still outmatch them on the genetic level by magnitudes. So the reason you are seeing this is that their job is not perfect. And so the features, the real features of women that we were supposed to have, that would have been, that you would have seen in everybody, they sneak out. They sneak out in people like her that don't age. When they say you are supposed to have children with men, and in order to vary your genes, etc., and then you see daughters who are literally exact copies of their moms. That is the same thing. The parthenogenesis is sneaking out. So this will be possible if the genes, if the part of the genes that does, that replenishes skin and collagen and all those, whatever it is that stops people from aging, if that part wasn't suppressed in her. These things are not a coincidence. These things that we are witnessing, I need you to start paying attention to everything that you think is weird, that you think is extraordinary, because they are not, in fact, extraordinary. They should have been the normal part of the human experience, of the human condition. We are not supposed to age. We are not supposed to wrinkle. We are not supposed to die at 32, at 52, at 82, at 100. I don't even believe that. I don't even believe that we're supposed to die at 100 years old. I don't even believe that. I believe that is a consequence of what they did to us. I believe that is a consequence of what they did to us. So I need you to start paying attention to people like this. I need you to start paying attention to people like this. We're going to get into a stage where at some point we're going to get into an actual lab. We are going to get into an actual lab where we can research these things so that we can find the truth of what is different, of whether she has the full ability to parthenogenize, or she does not. It's likely that she doesn't. It's likely that it's only a part of her that escaped, a part of the second X that escaped the caging. But it's also very possible. It also means that parthenogenesis is likely happening also, perhaps to a much less degree than seeing people with, who are not aging. But I believe that it is happening out there. I believe that it is happening out there. I know for sure that the actual process, the parthenogenesis process, it initiates in women. Did you know that? Did you hear what I said? I know for a fact that the process initiates when you hear of a thing called teratoma. Teratoma is a germ cell. They call it a germ cell instead of an egg. In order to show you, and this is how insidious these males are. They call it a germ cell, which is just literally an egg, which is an egg, right? An egg starts off developing without male sperm, but they call it a germ cell to detach you from understanding what that really is. It is a woman's ability to parthenogize. I think I said that wrong. To parthenogize, yeah, to parthenogize. Except for the thing that they did to prevent us from doing it, right? It's not going to work perfectly, so they did a downstream fixing, right? A downstream control system, so that if it does in fact start, if the control system failed, right? If their fix, if the caging of us failed, and it actually does start to parthenogize, then downstream, all the things that it's going to need to make an actual baby would not be there. The genes, the messaging, the messaging processes, the genes turning on, the genes shutting off at the right times, the chemicals to drive the messaging pathways to make the child be formed in a way that it's not going to disgust a woman, right? That they did that. They did that. So what I'm telling you is that teratomas is the woman starting the process of parthenogizing. Teratomas is the very process of the woman starting to get pregnant. Parthenogenesis, teratomas is the woman attempting to be pregnant by herself. Jesus Christ. Teratomas is the woman attempting to be pregnant by herself. That is the body's way. That is an automatic way. How do you call it? It is autogynal. It is an autogynal thing, which means it is inherent. It cannot be erased. It is inherent and cannot be erased. And because it cannot be erased, they can only block it. That is why people like her, we see a sprinkle of them all over the place. Our real selves are escaping. Our real selves are escaping. Look at her. This is what a woman is supposed to look like. You are supposed to look like your 21-year-old self for your entire life. That is what you are supposed to look like. I just wanted to jump on here and say this because it got me so hot. It got me so hot. Do you see how wonderful the woman is? Do you see how wonderful the woman is? Look at her. She is 54 and looks like this. This is not a mistake. This is not a mistake. This is not the outlier. What we are right now, that is the outlier. The aging that we're going through, that is the outlier. And I mean to prove that to women. I mean to prove that to women. that what we are experiencing here, that is the weird stuff. That this is what is normal. That's it for now.